of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Christy Hernandez. I work in human resources. I'm part of the learning and organizational development team. And so I'm happy to be here with you today. This is our last HR Insights for the season, but we are working on our plan for next year. We're kind of mapping out what topics we will provide to you for next year. And so before the end of this year, we will let you know our roster for HR Insights for 2026. And then I also want to remind you that we have one other Lunch and Learn series called Elevate Your Impact. Beth, if you would go ahead and move on to that one. And that's with RJ Vega, my colleague. He facilitates Elevate Your Impact, and we have one of these Lunch and Learns left this year on December 4th. It's called Communicating Effectively. So if you haven't registered for that, we would love to see you there. There's information at the bottom of this slide how to register. You can go to the intranet, go to the HR page, select learning, and then select the yellow button that says training calendar. And there are links to the various options that we have, and you can register there. All right, so let's get this party started. And I'm going to, in just a minute, invite the risk team to introduce themselves. But before that, I want to hear from you in chat one more time. And I want to know, what is one word that you think of when you hear workers' comp? Let us know in chat. When you hear workers' comp, what's one word that comes to mind? Okay. Injury, injured, injured on the job, ugh. All right, thank you. So go ahead and keep the, paperwork, yikes. Yeah, there's a lot of people that think paperwork. All right, risk team, let's get rolling. I'm gonna turn it over to you. You can do some introductions and get us started.
So I'm Sarah Kroll. I'm the Risk Management Division Leader, and I have the pleasure of working with this team and overseeing this division. Within our division, not only do we work with workers' comp, FMLA, ADA, any type of leave benefit, but we also have our safety program administrator and our our insurance claims administrator. So we're a pretty diverse group, and we're hoping that this presentation today helps with some of your comments and your one words about workers' comp, especially some of the paperwork stuff as we've moved electronic, and that will hopefully become less. So I will kick it over to Beth Olson, who is our Employee Leave Benefits Manager. Oh, and put your questions throughout the presentation in the chat. Sorry, Beth. I forgot. So I'll be monitoring chat. So if you have anything that comes up, I will see it and grab it and we'll get it addressed. So this is your time as well.
Got it. I'm sure we'll hear from Sarah throughout our presentation. So welcome, everybody. I have worked with probably several of you on some of these situations. So to get started, I've been with the city for about 2 years, Employee Leave Benefits Manager, the FMLA, ADA, work comp, all those fun leave benefits. So Jody's actually going to get us started today. So take it off, Jody.
Thank you, Beth. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jody Kuma, and I'm happy and grateful in being selected as a team member of the City Risk Team in July of this year. I have approximately 25 years of federal human resource experience with the Department of Defense. To put it shortly, I'm familiar with working in complex and at times bureaucratic processes, which for some of you in the audience today may perceive the workers' compensation process as such. So yes, that was somewhat of a joke, but somewhat true with working federal processes. But hey, have no fear. Today, we're here to walk through the workers' compensation process and make sure you have a clear understanding of what happens when an injury occurs. As previously mentioned in the introduction, the risk management team is the owner and facilitator of workers' compensation, along with the other important employees programs, such as the Family Medical Leave Act, otherwise known as FMLA, Paid Parental Leave, otherwise known as PPL, the American Disabilities Act, otherwise termed as ADA, and the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. To get us started, let's take a look at the agenda, today's agenda, so you can see the roadmap of what we'll cover. We've got a lot of information in store for you today, so here's a quick look at what we're going to cover. We'll start with an overview of why workers' comp matters, not just legally, but for you, the employees, and the organization as a whole. We'll also look at the types of claims and the reporting process for both our county and city employees. We'll break down the roles and responsibilities of the various people who are involved in the process. We'll talk about the different benefits for leave and wage replacement, such as injury leave and medical benefits. And we'll talk about the outcomes of the process. For example, what if a claim is denied, or our best case scenario, helping you, the employee, recover and return to work. Last, we'll go over the support that's available so you know where to turn with questions. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. First of all, workers' compensation is about protecting employees first. It ensures they get the medical care they need and the wage replacement while they recover. It also supports organizational stability. By having a structured program, we equalize costs, reduce lost work time, and encourage employees to return to work safely. On the compliance side, this isn't optional. Nebraska law requires workers' compensation coverage, and it's overseen by the Workers' Compensation Court. Finally, this program reinforces trust and fairness. It shows employees that the city and the county takes their well-being seriously and that handles injuries with integrity. The takeaway is that workers' compensation benefits everyone, the employees, the organization, and the public we serve. So what is workers' compensation? Workers' compensation is an insurance program required by state law. It provides two key protections, which is medical coverage for employees who are injured or become ill because of their job, wage replacement benefits if they cannot work while recovering. It's also designed to protect the employee and the employer. Employees are guaranteed care and income support, and employers are protected from lawsuits by providing this coverage. Think of it as a safety net, a system in place so employees don't have to worry about paying for medical treatment or losing all the income when they're hurt at work. At this time, and before we move on to the next slide, which will discuss the different type of injuries, I would like to introduce you to our employee, Chuck, AKA most call him Chucky, who is a Lincoln police officer performing all duties assigned. We will follow Chucky in the workers' compensation process. Let's talk about Chucky. In the spirit of October, Chucky was on shift the other day and performing his duties by responding to a call. While taking a suspect into custody, the suspect, of course, resisted and assaulted Officer Chucky, bringing him down to the ground. After the altercation, Officer Chucky feels pain in his knees and in his right shoulder. So, audience, I would like to hear what you think. Let me know in the chat, what do you think the next step is for Officer Chucky? Don't be shy.
There we go. Good job.
Thank you, Matthew. Oh, we got some smart people within the group here. Supervisor, awesome.
Boy, we could have some of these guys do this presentation.
For sure. All right, next slide, please.
Yep.
Thank you. Like all of our law enforcement professionals, Officer Chucky is a tough guy and not quite sure if he needs to seek medical treatment. After all, he gets into altercations quite frequently during his shift. He reviews his options, which are, the first one is a case can start as a report only. The employee may have an injury or an illness, but it might think that it might get better, or they're not seeking treatment quite yet, and they are not missing any work. Or a case could be started as a medical only, which if the employee decides to seek care and misses 7 days or less from work, falls within our medical only claim. Or in cases if we have an employee who has an overnight hospitalization, or if recovery is expected to take longer to where work time is missed beyond the 7-day threshold, the case is categorized as a major medical loss time. Please note, cases can shift. So a report only can change to a medical only if the employee determines they need treatment. In addition, medical only cases can become a major medical loss time if healing and recovery isn't going as expected. Because claims can evolve, it's critical that employees and departments let risk know right away when the status changes. This ensures benefits are handled correctly and the city and county can stay compliant and the employee gets the right support. Let's go back to Officer Chucky. He decides the level of pain he is feeling in his knees. He would like to be evaluated from a physician, so he submits a medical only claim. But wait, you all are probably thinking, how did Officer Chucky report his injury? And actually, some of you in the audience who put in the chat kind of knew to report the claim, but how do we report that? So when an injury occurs, everything begins with the claims process. Here comes the paperwork that you all mentioned. At this time, I'll be passing it over to Beth to discuss the claims process. Over to you.
All right. Well, the very first step is, like we said, reporting the injury. And how do we do that? We're first going to cover how employees report an injury. So while much of the work comp information today is the same, the city and county do have some slight differences on carrying that out. So on the county side, the injured worker or employees would do a report of injury. There is an online claim form, or they can do it on paper and submit that to the county risk team, which would be Carrie and Sue. Either the employee or the supervisor may submit the report as long as it's completed timely. Once the report is submitted, both the injured worker and the supervisor will receive a claim number and instructions on where medical bills should be sent. This ensures that treatment can move forward without delays and that billing gets sent to the right place. After every medical visit, it's very important that employees and supervisors forward medical documents and status updates to Carrie and Sue. This keeps risk up to date on restrictions, progress, and return to work readiness. We do need that return to work note whenever someone is coming back to work or to have that status update. The goal of this process is to keep communication flowing between the employee, the supervisor, the medical provider, and risk, so the claim can be handled quickly and correctly. Just in case you need them, here are Carrie and Sue's contact information for county risk. So while the county and city have similar obligations, as I said, under work comp reporting, the methods have some slight variations. The city uses a claims management system link as the avenue to report work injuries. It is found on the HR intranet site. It's under a couple of places, so under HR forms, under injury forms, or there's a time off option. That same link will work for multiple requests. A couple of tips. When you are looking at that link, as it uses your computer credentials when you log into a work computer, do not save that Origami Risk link as a favorite, or the next time you try to access it, it will ask you for username and password information. Instead, we suggest that you bookmark the HR intranet site for the injury forms or time off link, and that should make everything work smoothly for you. We strongly prefer that city employees submit their own injury report. Well, actually, we strongly suggest that all employees submit their own injury report, but we strongly suggest the city employees use this electronic version. When an employee submits that information themselves, it helps the employee make sure their personal information is correct. They're able to provide a personal contact email and phone number. That really helps us communicate with the employee better while they are on leave and may not have access to their work email. And then they will have to indicate their choice on the Form 50 doctor form if medical treatment is required. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. If the employee is incapacitated, a supervisor or HR admin assistant may submit the report on the employee's behalf if they're in the emergency room or unconscious. Once the employee is able, we will review that information and have them review the report for accuracy. So we'll follow up and make sure we've got all the information we need, but the employee can also check in with us. The electronic submission is preferred, as I said. One of the reasons we like that is it helps expedite the process. So the city's third-party work comp administrator, Corvell, is notified as soon as that report is sent. It goes automatically to them. We also have it set up to automatically send a confirmation report to the employee and the supervisor who is listed in Oracle. So right away, you know that your claim was submitted successfully. Paper forms are accepted only if the employee does not have regular computer access, although we should still be trying to see if they can get some help with someone in the office helping them complete that online. The workers' comp claim notification and next steps packet from Corvell would include the adjuster's information, their mailing address, where to send the bills, email, and then some customer service information if you have questions throughout your claim for Corvell. Now, getting back to our friend Officer Chucky, since he's a city employee, he completed the injury report electronically. Way to go, Chucky. All right, so we've got the report. The next big decision Officer Chucky needs to make is who is going to be his doctor. In Nebraska, we use what's called a Form 50. If you remember on the last slide, I said we'd be talking about the Form 50. The Form 50, he's going to use that to make his official choice of who he wants to treat him for this work injury. It's a pretty simple form, but it does carry a lot of weight. It locks in the treating physician for the work comp claim and dictates the treatment plan. Now, here's something most people don't realize. Employees actually have the right to choose their own doctor for a work-related injury. The caveat is that doctor has to have treated the employee or one of their immediate family members within the last year, and then they can pick that provider. This is a great way to keep continuity of care with someone who already knows that family's health history. All right, so I'm going to have you guys go ahead and raise your hand if you knew that was an option. Do we see any hands raising? All right. If you didn't before, you do now. If an employee does not have a preference, that's fine too. City employees can go to our contracted medical provider, which is Concentra. And there are multiple locations, I believe, between Lincoln and Omaha. And city or county employees may also be directed to another provider option, like an urgent care or emergency room, depending on what the situation is. Once that doctor is selected and listed on the Form 50, then that provider becomes the official treating physician for the claim. So if you've heard before, it's not the Form 50 doctor, now you kind of know what that means. That Form 50 doctor is the one who can refer the employee to specialists, and they coordinate the overall care plan. Now, here's the important part. Once that choice is made, it's not something that can just be switched on a whim. Any change to the Form 50 has to be approved by the work comp adjuster. If an employee tries to see another doctor, that could delay or possibly even jeopardize coverage. So the takeaway here is simple. Make your doctor choice carefully, communicate it clearly, and keep us in the loop if anything changes. The nice thing for city employees is we have incorporated this into our injury report to make it pretty clear and easy on how to make that selection. So now back to our friend. As far as Officer Chucky, he has decided to go with a doctor that his wife has been seeing and is a well-known orthopedic doctor, Dr. Jekyll. And no, not that Dr. Jekyll. So Chucky lists him on his Form 50. Wise choice, Chucky, wise choice. To review, the city's points of contact are our submission portal or link. Replying directly to the emails from Origami will reach our team. If you type Origami in a separate email, that doesn't always work as well, but if you reply directly to the email that is sent from Origami, that will reach our team, and it will keep all communication with your case in the claims system and help us make sure we're tracking. The risk email is available, risk@lincoln.ne.gov. That will reach me or our friend Sarah or our friend Jody. We all have access to check and respond to those emails per our workloads. Our direct phone extensions are listed here if you have a specific question for one of us. And then that Corvell adjuster information would be sent out to you and as a point of contact once they are assigned to your claim.
We had a question in the chat. What if an employee needs a second opinion? And I just wanted to answer that while we were here. So if an employee does need a second opinion or requests a second opinion, there's a couple of different options for them. One is that the Form 50 doctor could refer them to someone else. They would need to refer them, or they would just need to work with their work comp claims adjuster to get permission and have them okay a referral or to get a second opinion.
Great question. Next, we're going to cover an essential part of Nebraska workers' compensation process. What happens after a workplace injury is reported and we've selected our physician. So our next slide is going to include a breakdown of leave benefits available to employees and compensation that you may be entitled to. Understanding these components ensures both employees and employers are informed, compliant, and prepared to navigate this process effectively. Let's talk about these different types of workers' compensation payments employees might receive after an injury. So first up is temporary partial disability, or TPD. There's a lot of acronyms coming up, so be prepared. This applies when an employee can still work, but has some kind of modified capacity within certain restrictions. For example, maybe they can't lift heavy items the same way they could before. So there might be a temporary reassignment to light duty tasks until they're further along in recovery and until that restriction is lifted. So that's one way. Another one is temporary total disability, which is TTD. Now, this one would cover employees who are completely unable to work for a period of time due to the injury. While they are recovering, they receive payments to replace a portion of their income. On occasion, there is what is called permanent disability payments available. This comes into play once a physician determines the employee has reached what's called maximum medical improvement, or MMI for short. That means their condition has stabilized and is not expected to change much for better or worse. At that point, any remaining limitations might qualify them for permanent benefits. And then finally, if necessary, we hope it doesn't get there, there are death benefits. If a work-related injury tragically results in death, the employee's spouse and eligible dependents may receive benefits, including help with burial expenses. Let's hope that we don't have very many or any of those. For all of these categories, Nebraska law provides that the benefit is generally 2/3 of the employee's average weekly wage. And this is capped as a statutory maximum that does change every year. And some good news for that is these payments are not subject to taxes. In addition to these benefits, some unions have bargained for what's called injury leave. So I will talk about that a little bit. So how injury leave works, this is a period of time where the employer keeps the employee on the regular payroll instead of transitioning them right away to workers' compensation payments. It's an awesome benefit. Basically, instead of Corvell or the county sending those separate benefits checks, the city or county continues to pay the employee directly through payroll for a while. It's a way to keep paychecks steady and avoid some of the delays or confusion that can happen early in a claim. Eligibility starts right on the day of injury, so there's no waiting period, no gap in pay. The length of time someone can stay on injury leave depends on the union contract and what was negotiated, since each one spells out slightly different rules, which makes our job super fun. For the city, the maximum period is typically 6 months, though police and fire do have a few exceptions because of the nature of their work and how their contracts are written. For the county, injury leave usually lasts up to 10 days, unless sheriff's office, again, which has a few differences, and it could extend to 60 days. So think of this as the city and county stepping in early to help keep things running smoothly. They're handling those initial wage payments in-house while the claim is being reviewed, while the employee's getting back on their feet. It's still part of the work comp system. It's just managed internally to make life a little easier for everyone involved. When I first started with the city and county, I thought that was a pretty cool benefit. Some groups, however, may not or are not eligible for injury leave, or if someone exhausts injury leave. So let's take a look at what would happen in those cases.
And we've got a couple of questions in the chat real quick that I just want to address while we're here on this topic. What if it is not immediately clear whether the injury was a result of work? So, Angela, we typically go with implementing injury leave at the get and treat it as if it was a result of work. When we're reviewing those medical notes and as they come in, because it's early in the process, if it is determined that that is not related to a work injury, then we go back and reverse that injury leave and swap it for sick or vacation leave with the individual. We do it that way because typically many of our claims end up being work related. So the majority of what we have to swap is usually pretty infrequent. Hopefully that answers that question. And then our second question is, if an employee is on work comp status, do they still accrue vacation, sick, and retirement? So that, yes, kind of depends a little bit. It depends on the injury leave and the pay status that they're in. But yes, if they're utilizing that, then they still accrue their benefits. Beth, Jody, am I missing anything with any of those?
You guys might hear these again, as long as they are on injury leave. Yes, those will continue. On the TTD, TPD, that would change a little bit. And then employees currently using sick leave did file work comp. Angela, we might have to talk after and review that situation. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and feel free to reach out or email one of us, because I do not promise I'll remember from this conversation right here. All right. When an employee is out of work due to an injury and they've used up their injury leave, or if they're not eligible for it, we would shift to workers' compensation payments, as we've kind of already discussed. That would be the temporary partial disability if they're working in a reduced capacity, or the temporary total disability if they can't work at all. If someone is not eligible for injury leave, there is a 7-day waiting period before workers' compensation payments begin. During that initial 7-day period, employees can use their personal leave banks, or they could choose to take leave without pay. If the disability lasts more than 6 weeks, that waiting period would get reimbursed retroactively, so they would get their money back. Once benefits start, workers' compensation covers 2/3 of regular wages. Payments would come from the county or from Corval for city employees. Departments would record the time in payroll as leave without pay or absence without pay, depending on which system you use, with work comp noted in the comments. This is important for tracking to make sure that we get those reported accurately. Helps everyone stay on the same page. FMLA should be used as the reason code as applicable, which City Risk will provide this information once you're eligible. Employees may choose to supplement their work comp pay, meaning they can use their personal leave to make up the difference between their regular wages and the 2/3 work comp rate. It's optional. Many employees do it, so their paycheck stays closer to normal. Holiday pay only applies if the employee was in a paid status through payroll, both the day before and the day after the holiday. And that's per union contract language, depending on how that works. So those are days that sometimes people choose to make sure they supplement that day before and after the holiday. And finally, insurance coverage continues during this period. The city or county keeps paying its share of premiums, and the employee remains responsible for their portion. If there's a balance due, payroll will notify the employee directly, so coverage does not lapse. I do want to make a note that on the holiday pay, that with injury leave, your holidays would continue as normal. It would only be on the TTD, TPD with that 2/3 that you would have to supplement in order to get those holidays. So in short, when injury leave ends, TPD or TTD takes over, keeping wage replacement going while an employee continues to recover. I told you there was some acronym soup here. All right, this isn't about how long employees can stay away. We would like our employees to come to work and do all the great things that they do. So this is about how we support recovery and set clear expectations for returning to work. Employees have up to 6 months to return to full duty, which would align with FMLA and ADA rules. Police and fire have a few unique positions under their contracts once again. The emphasis is on returning employees to productive work as available, either full duty or with reasonable accommodations, and we want to do that as soon as safely possible. These timelines help balance support for recovery of the employee with the operational needs of the departments across the organization. So now it's time, Christy, I'm going to turn it over to you for our first chat question.
Yes, thank you. So we've been talking a lot about process, and of course, what Beth was just referring to is that we really want to get employees recovered and back to work. But depending on what they're dealing with, that can be kind of challenging. So we want to hear from you in chat. What do you think is the biggest challenge for employees returning to work after an injury? So I'm sure you've seen some things, maybe you've experienced some things. So what do you think on this?
I keep wanting to jump in and answer. I'm like, no, I want to see what you guys have to say.
Yeah, right. Oh, Amy, good one. Fear of the unknown. Definitely. What else comes to mind, when people have been out on an injury and maybe they're not, 100% back to normal? Okay, so Megan said dealing with pain, absolutely. Figuring out accommodations, concerned that the injury symptoms might come back. Thanks, Matthew. Fear of what people think. Thank you, Autumn.
Not recovering quickly enough.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, to Suzanne's point as well, you know, we all heal differently. I mean, Beth and I could both break our feet, and she could, you know, have physical therapy and it would be fine, and I might need surgery. So what is a care plan for one person, even with the same injury, may not be the same path for another. Sometimes, you know, unfortunately, as we get older, we don't heal as nicely or as quickly as we would like. So there's some different care plans around that.
I don't know anything
yes.
about that yet, Sarah. You're
Lucky
obviously
you.
You don't look it. You don't look it, darling. You're beautiful.
Lucky you.
But we also have, yes, you could re-injure it, and depending on the time frame for that, we can help work through. The risk teams on both sides for city and county can help you work through whether or not those are things that might be still covered under your old work comp claim. So those are things that we can work with the employee on as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed Trevor's comment, flare-ups requiring more doctor's appointment. I feel like that kind of goes to what you were just talking about, right? Then kind of circle back around with the team to make sure that we're going through the process correctly with people. Okay, thanks everyone.
All right, good job. So jumping back into benefits under work comp covers all reasonable medical and hospital services provided by the treating physician listed on the Form 50 as approved by the adjuster. That includes office visits, surgeries, and follow-up care. They may cover things too, like durable medical equipment, and what you're thinking of are things like walking boots, slings, crutches, braces, external objects that are added on to help with recovery. Prescribed medications, your prescriptions, so you don't have to pay out of pocket for those. And that temporary prescription card is sent along with the review of the claim to the supervisor and employee when an employee first reports an injury. If a prosthetic device is required, those would be covered. And then there may be some other random necessary medical supplies that, if you review it by the adjuster, they may approve things like dressings or therapy aids. And then finally, workers' compensation can reimburse mileage for medical visits when properly documented. This would ensure that employees are not financially penalized for traveling to and from appointments. That's just helpful under the Nebraska work comp law. So the big picture is that workers' compensation is designed to remove barriers to recovery. We want to make sure employees get both the care and supports they need. And I don't know that I remember seeing it in our presentation going forward, but I do know there are studies that getting employees back to work sooner is better for everyone. It helps reestablish that routine and just helps people with getting back to health faster. So briefly, if a claim is denied, because unfortunately, it's a reality that sometimes that does happen, what support is still available? Sometimes medical documentation does not fully support that the injury is work-related under Nebraska law. If that's the case, workers' compensation payments would stop at that point. That does not mean there's no options. It just means it's not covered under workers' compensation, and we need to shift how that medical care is going to be covered. The employee can continue to see their doctor and using their regular health insurance, so treatment does not have to pause while we sort things out. If this situation does come up, HR and risk management are here to help walk through the process, answer questions, make sure the employee understands what's next. It's really about keeping that communication open and ensuring care continues smoothly, even when a claim doesn't qualify for workers' compensation. And this just made me think of sometimes it's very frustrating for how long some of these can take. It just takes some time to communicate with the medical provider to get medical notes and have time to review. Some of those documents can be 300-400 pages. So sometimes it can take some time to do a good, thorough evaluation. We have covered a lot of information so far, and we are almost to the end of our time. So we have one last major area to discuss before we review what we've learned today. So Jody?
And before Jody starts on our last segment or our last leg here, we did have a question in the chat and I replied kind of lengthy. I'm sorry.
I see
We
that.
wanted to be thorough. So we had a really good question though. It says, is your job guaranteed after you've gone out on a work-related injury? And the short answer, I provided a long answer, but the short answer is it depends. Work comp doesn't necessarily guarantee your job protection, but that's why we have some additional layers that are potentially available and for folks who are eligible, which is FMLA. There are different provisions around that. Again, you have to have worked for at least a year, and there's our hour requirement, 1,250 hours in the last year at least to be eligible for FMLA. And then we've also got some accommodations we can do for job protection under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So while the work comp part doesn't necessarily say we have to guarantee your job, there are some other benefits that we can put over that as an umbrella to give you some job protections.
And I'm going to go ahead and plug for in the first quarter of next year, we're going to be doing another one of these that is going to cover how all of these things work together. If any of you attended our FMLA session or our ADA session, now we're doing work comp. Now our plan is to do one more that is all of these things: paid parental leave, the Pregnant for Workers Act, ADA. We're going to try to cover the whole smorgasbord in an hour.
Okay,
right.
sorry, Jody, back to you.
Yep. Go, Jody.
Thank you, Sarah. It was a very valid question, and thank you for asking those questions. Keep them coming. And holy moly, there can be a lot of moving parts in the workers' comp cases. And it's important that employees dealing with these situations know they're not alone in trying to handle it. There are things that they'll be responsible for, but their supervisor also plays a role, and so does the risk team along with the claims adjuster. Let's take a look at the responsibilities of each of these players. Each role in the workers' compensation process has a clear responsibility. As mentioned before, the employee's main job is to report the injury quickly, follow their care plan, and stay in touch about their progress. The supervisor makes sure the incident is reported correctly, supports the employee, and helps them return to work safely. Risk management keeps an eye on the whole process to ensure it runs smoothly and stays compliant. And the claims adjuster handles the formal claim review, the benefits, and coordination with the medical providers. All four roles fit together to keep the process fair, efficient, and supportive. Let's take a closer look at each one in the context of our process. First, the employee. I won't cover all of these, but I do want to highlight a few that are really important to the employee's success. First, I'll point out number 3. Adhering to the physician's guidance is key. That's so important in making sure the employee gets well. Next, let's take a look at number 4. The employee needs to ensure authorization and referrals are sent and approved to their claims adjuster in a timely manner to prevent delays in their treatment. And the last one I'll highlight is number 5. It's important that employees are transparent with their supervisor, the claims adjuster, and risk, just to keep everything aligned on what's happening. Okay, so now let me highlight a few of the supervisor responsibilities.
Just to jump in as a reminder, number 2, we already talked about the Form 50 and why that's so critical. So just sticking my 2 cents in. All right.
Okay, supervisors, we obviously have a lot on your plate, but when it comes to workers' comp, ensure that reported injuries filed and review all the correspondence, passing along the information, assisting with communicating with the employee, submitting those time cards and approvals in a timely manner. And of course, if there's questions, asking those questions, and then working with the risk team on restrictions, if applicable, with your employee. All important and pertinent with the success.
And I would
Next.
say, just remember to get a hold of us if you start having questions. Sometimes we've had managers contact us and it's been 2 or 3 weeks. And the sooner you get us involved, the sooner we can really help manage that claim and that return to work and any of those issues so they don't become bigger problems.
Yeah, you're not alone on an island. We're here to help. And we truly rely on you to help us, since we are not there and in your departments and don't have that frontline communication, especially when it comes to their time cards. So you guys help us, and we're definitely here to help you.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we'll highlight some of the pertinent risk responsibilities. So whether you are county or city, this will help complete a successful workers' compensation process. Again, I will not cover all of these, but overall, we want to ensure an employee who has a reported injury and obtaining medical treatment are provided a timely response, ensuring proper payment of leave benefits, and conduct case management reviews in hopes of a full return to work. The other duties noted are required as well for the success of the employee and the organization. Lastly is the claims adjuster, which for county employees is county risk. For city, it is Corvell. For the claims adjuster, it is important for them to communicate with all stakeholders effectively. So whether that is the physician, the employee, risk, basically all stakeholders. Reviewing those medical notes and authorizations, providing those timely responses to you, the injured employee. And of course, processing the TTD, TPD, the medical expenses, reimbursement, and ensuring those medical bills are getting paid accordingly. If it happens into litigation, communicate and providing those answers for those litigated claims. If you vision a 4-legged chair, and if one leg of the chair is gone, the function and usage of the chair is out. This is how we view the responsibilities of the employee, supervisor, risk, and claims adjuster in ensuring the workers' compensation process is less scary and bumpy, especially with our most important assets, which is you, the employees. Okay, we've covered a lot of information. It's time for a checkpoint, so I'm going to turn it over to Christy.
Okay, thank you. So we have a few questions here. I'm going to kick off these quiz questions, and you should see them pop up for you and just be able to answer, select your answer or the answer that you think is correct, and click submit, and then we'll talk about it. So the first question is, how quickly must an employee report a workplace injury to their supervisor? What do you think? Does it need to be reported immediately, within 24 hours, within 5 days, within 30 days? What do you think is the standard or the expectation here? All right, so we've got the majority of people, 70% of people, well, it's changing a little bit, are thinking immediately. And then we have some folks saying within 24 hours and a couple that have gone with the other 2 options. What do you think, team?
As soon as possible is always the best. Definitely within 24 hours. If you're getting within 5 days, it's probably late. And within 30 days, it's really late.
Yeah, immediately, preferably. We know you need medical attention and medical care. So obviously, if you're bleeding and need stitches or have an emergency situation, do that. but also task a supervisor maybe or someone else with filing that report then for you. And then we can review it with the employee after it's filed to make sure that it got filled out correctly. But the sooner the better, because the sooner you get that information to us, the sooner we can start processing that and making sure that your care is covered.
I would rather have something and not have to do anything with it than not have it.
Okay, good advice. Thank you. All right, now, if you haven't gotten rid of that question in front of you, go ahead and close out of that. And I'm going to go ahead and launch the next one, and hopefully it will pop up for everyone. So this question is, how much of an employee's wages does workers' comp typically replace while on TTD? What do you think? What did you hear? Go ahead and select your answer and submit it. Oh, we have 100% of people saying 2/3 of the average weekly wage. They got that right, didn't they? Okay.
Good job, everybody. And we look back, so it's 26 weeks. So if I got injured today, we would take a look back at your earnings for the past 26 weeks. And that may include overtime if you've been working that. You know, we've got a lot of folks on the county side who might get called in for snow pay when they're doing that emergency pay. So all of that gets taken into consideration and puts into the calculation to calculate your 2/3 wage amount.
Hey, thank you. Folks, we have 5 minutes left, so let's move on to resources.
Perfect. I just sent Christy a message to we had one more.
Let's keep moving.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Christy. That was great. We wanted to make sure to leave you with resources that you would need if you end up in this situation. Sometimes we hear about things, but until it applies to us, there's a lot of details to remember in this process. So if you are in this situation or assisting someone through a work injury, here's the things that we've covered today, the key components of the work comp process. Remember, this is really designed to support employees who experience a work-related injury or illness. So a quick summary of what we discussed. We went through the claims process, reporting the injury, filing the claim, medical evaluation and review, which is really the adjuster who looks at those 300-400 pages of medical notes. If you've ever read a medical note, that is not the most fun job in the world. We've talked about the available benefits, which include medical benefits and coverage. We've talked about wage replacement with the injury leave, TPD, TTD. And then we've talked about the different responsibilities people have in working through this. So as our final slide on this, the city and county have several written rules regarding workers' compensation. The information presented today is reflected in a variety of areas such as policies, individual contracts, Lincoln Municipal Code, county personnel rules, and all of these are written to follow the guidelines within Nebraska workers' compensation laws. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. And
Yes.
Christy?
Thank you. Yep, I'll cover this one. So we always want to hear your feedback. I also have put a link in chat, so you can either use a QR code with your phone and fill out our feedback survey, or go ahead and click the link that I just put in chat. But whatever the case, I would love to hear from all of you. We want to know how this worked for you. And also there's a question in that feedback form of what other topics you would like us to cover in our HR Insights Lunch and Learns. And so timing is great because we still have a few slots open during our schedule for next year. So if you come up with some topics that you'd like to hear about that we're able to offer, we can hopefully fit them in for you. So yeah, that's it for me. Sarah, Jody, Beth, thank you so much for participating and providing your expertise in our HR Insights series. Thanks everyone for coming. We appreciate all of you. Have a great day.